be able to get you to your next session on time. Joanne is an award-winning digital strategist. She's currently the managing partner of Disruptors Handbook, specialises in incubating innovation from a marketing perspective. She has extensive experience in the area of innovation and currently working with companies such as Qantas, Johnson & Johnson, a not-for-profit group that's teaching code in schools so that kids can learn from the get-go and be enormously digitally literate. And I'm absolutely delighted to introduce her as our next speaker for the day. Welcome, Joanne.
Thanks very much for having me, folks. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is that I'm also on the industry advisory board for Telstra. So basically, I spend a lot of my time saying you're doing it wrong. So what I'm going to be talking about here is quite close in some respects to what Christopher said and what Scott said earlier as well. But I'm going to be looking at it more from perhaps a more technological perspective and also from an innovation perspective from enterprise. And that also can mean industry and your industries in particular. And I know there's a lot of optimism, and there's a lot of optimism in this room, and optimism is great. But I'm not an optimist, not by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a realist, and I am not interested in innovation because I hope that there will be something great that happens. I'm interested in innovation because I know how to use an innovation event to triple the value generated compared with the cost of running that event in 48 hours. That's not optimism, that's maths. And I've done it over and over and over again, and I'm not alone in doing this. A lot of people are doing the same thing, and it's all about disruption and rapid prototyping. And I've got a thing here, haven't I? Yeah. So what I'm going to be covering here in this session are three basic areas. I do this with all of my presentations because I like signposting. I'm an old educator, and I like the idea of saying, this is what I'm going to say, and then showing you that I actually said it. So defining the challenges, illustrating how disruptive innovation in particular, and I am going to define the term, so thank you, Christopher, I am going to define it, can create duties for rural cities. And I want to chart a path for you to do the same thing, and I'm giving it all away for free. Okay, so, because frankly, there's plenty of room for it. So let's start with innovation history. It's always a good idea to look back before you look forward. You guys have done pretty well. You started with alluvial gold discoveries in the late 19th century. But of course, you're a long way inland and water shortages were obvious immediately. You started with the 560k pipeline in 1898 and you completed it in 1903. So 10 years from problem identification to problem resolution, only problem, and that's actually, by the time, pretty fast innovation. And extraordinary over the distances that you were doing. I mean, it was large-scale innovation, large-scale construction in a very short period of time. The only problem was that prospecting had begun to decline by the time you actually had the water problem resolved. But what did you do? You said, bugger that, we'll build an agricultural industry. And you did that well too. And you're still doing it. Your agricultural innovation is one of the best in Australia. You may not be aware of it. I'm based in Sydney. I lived all over the East Coast, and I actually know about Kalgoorlie-based agricultural innovation. I also know that you're doing energy-efficient design, which is by need, by necessity. You have to be energy-efficient because you have significantly reduced resources. Your water pipeline is still in operation. I find it extraordinary that 60% of the materials used for the original pipeline are still in situ. That is an amazing construction that is built to last. Well done. And you've got this, so the Kalgoorlie-Boulder, if I pronounced that correctly? Kalgoorlie-Boulder? Whatever. Anyway, is the housing design project you've got with that land called the Handbook construction. I really like the Handbook construction. I've actually learned about it when I was doing my research for this presentation. I thought this is extraordinary. It's great stuff. You're doing very big projects, very big innovation. You don't actually celebrate it, but that's your problem. Where are you now? I've got 32,000, some people said 33,000, I was using the last census numbers, so, quarter of your jobs are in mining. You're producing one heck of a lot of gross value-added product effectively, per capita. In fact, you're one of the biggest gross value-added per capita in the world, let alone in Australia. So you're pretty rich. But your super pit is supposed to be due for completion in 5 years' time. Now, I know that people have already said in this room that that's likely to be extended. Great, fantastic. But if we are looking at 5 years, then that's half the time it took to build the solution to your last big problem of water. So maybe it might be time to think about alternative options. So water continues to be a problem, but you actually have an opportunity. And the interesting thing is, in the little session that we had before Chris's presentation, we were talking about the things that you could do. And one of the things that came up, sorry, I am multitasking here. By the way, I can also read my tweets, and I can read this during the presentation, so feel free to ask questions. By the way, have anybody noticed that some of the comments on Slido have mysteriously disappeared during the course of the day? Particularly critical comments, I noticed. Now, I can take it, all right? If you have something critical to say about me, then say it, because this is what you have an opportunity to do here. I am multitasking. You guys have an opportunity to become an innovation powerhouse. You can capitalise on the skills that you have, on the industries that you have. In our conversation in our little group here, we had one part of the group saying we need to diversify economic opportunities for Kalgoorlie-Boulder. And the other part saying, no, we have expertise in mining and agriculture. We need to capitalise on that. Actually, you need to do both. You need to take the skills that you have and find new ways to do things better. That is effectively what every single one has been saying, whether it was Scott, Chris, or me in this session. What we're all trying to do is get you to think differently about how you innovate, not just try to get you to actually continue to do the same things. You have huge potential for solar, huge potential for distribution, communications. All of the skill sets are in the town. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be disparaging. All the people who need to be able to contribute to innovation projects are here. You also have a difficulty where if the mining industry does tend to fail or tend to reduce over the course of the next 10 years, you need to reskill your workers so that they stay here and that they continue to form part of our community. If you're reskilling them or if you're giving them a new way of utilising their skills, you are going to extend the life of your community and your industry. So, let's talk about disruptive innovation, shall we? And you dob in an empty shop on I love that.
Elon Musk's SpaceX rocket landing on a platform in the ocean. That's some serious high-end innovation. And it's bloody expensive and it's failed several times. All right, so this is really high cost, high risk innovation, large scale, major investment. The only reason why... Do I really need it? No. I'm a bit noisy.
Alright, I'll continue to use it because, this is even noisier. I can start to whisper. Okay, so this is really, really expensive. The only reason why Elon Musk
has had such success with SpaceX is because he's thrown so many billions of dollars into this project, and he's lost billions of dollars in this project, because he knows that high risk, high return. He has an investor's mentality when it comes to these kinds of projects. You guys used to have that. Well, you probably still do. But ultimately, it is beginning to be more about efficiency of innovation that is taking control. And the sort of things that Christopher talked about with Renew Newcastle is really what we call low-end innovation, small-scale projects. And interestingly enough, this is where most of the world is moving, to small-scale innovation. I don't know whether I've got it up on screen. Yeah, I do. So this is a variation of the thing that Bernard Salt put up this morning about the top 10 companies, and it was before a few of the others came on board. So disruptive innovation is by definition a market shift. Disruptive innovation changes the way we purchase products, use products, do things. Disruption changes. It's not incremental, it's disruptive. The economic impact of disruptive innovation is far more important than incremental innovation. But we spend a lot of our time focusing on innovation projects that are incremental rather than disruptive. We should be thinking differently about innovation, generally speaking. If you think about all the companies that have started to emerge over the last 5 years, the biggest companies that are taking over what is appallingly badly called the sharing economy, because it's more about the hiring economy, let's face it. So examples like Uber, which have totally grown massively over the course of the last 5 years in metropolitan centres. Airbnb, how many of you are hiring out your house as an Airbnb income generation opportunity? This is happening everywhere. The biggest accommodation company in the world right now is Airbnb. The biggest telecommunications company in the world right now owns no networks, it's called Skype. The biggest car company in the world, car hire company in the world, that has no cars is called Uber. It's all small-scale innovation. The people who are doing really well with small-scale innovation, I'll come back to that, hang on. People who are doing really well with small-scale innovation have not even invested in infrastructure. They have simply done what Kalgoorlie-Boulder did at its birth. They've taken existing resources that are just lying around, and they've used an interface to dig it up and make it available and maximise the return on investment for those resources. That's what the sharing economy actually does. It's been a market shift, a disruption in the way that we do things. This is what we should be facilitating. The impact of disruption on the Australian GDP by 2025 is expected to be approximately 1/4 of our entire GDP. That's in the next 9 years. Now, if we look here, this is manufacturing and this is mining. The black bits, the 6%, are digital technologies. So at the moment, digital technologies is not anticipated to have very much of an impact on mining. I rather disagree. This is from Deloitte in terms of digital disruption. So the one with the 40% and the 36% is IT and telcos and financial and insurance services. But I actually think that there's a significant opportunity for digital to actually have some innovation effect on pretty much every industry, including things like construction and agriculture and industry development. And there has certainly been some evidence of that coming out of the research projects. So this is why disruptive technologies are so important. They are small-scale change or innovation over time. Okay, so you take little projects, you put them together, and generally they produce a market shift. Although, and what happened with Uber was they simply said, let's build a website where we look after the money, and then a mapping system to actually connect buyers with sellers. That's all I did. Someone decided I'm less interested. So, okay, I have to acknowledge this. A lot of because I'm a bit of an advocate for innovation, as you may have seen so far, there are a lot of people who are saying that disruptive innovation is a buzzword. And to be honest, a lot of the criticism that has been brought about on this issue is entirely fair, because all you need to do is listen to Malcolm Turnbull for about 5 minutes and you get about 90 buzzwords associated with innovation and agile and how we're going to be a better superpower. I said, well, you know, I always say, when I lived in London for 5 years, and I used to say to people in London, well, if you take the most cunning and the most agile, most fit people from one country and then you stick them in paradise for 200 years, of course you're going to develop a super race. So anyway, but look, it's not necessarily true that that disruptive innovation is necessarily a buzzword. You know, people are, just because it's been misused by policy wonks, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. There are entrepreneurs out there, the people who are participating in Newcastle are some of them. You will find that there are plenty of entrepreneurs amongst your 12-year-olds in your community. I've been involved with a bunch of coding programs at various schools, and I have seen children as young as 8 building solutions to problems that are entirely commercialisable. These are extraordinary, and they are absolutely possible to every regional city. And because, hang on, just the last point there, was regional cities are a great test market for international development. Much better, in fact, than cities, where you're more likely to get cynical types. So you're actually a great test market for innovation. So this is what rapid prototyping does, and this is the thing that my company does. We do rapid prototyping events, and I am not selling my service to you. I'm just showing you what we do. So it's used for targeted open idea development and potential incubation. So they are competitive idea storms. Basically, what you just did in your groups was a form of competitive idea storm. Okay, you got together, you kind of chucked a few ideas around, came up with some solutions. Design jams, where people are coming together and building maker faire stuff with actual physical kit, building a response to a community. Hackathons, who's been to a hackathon? Yay, hackathons are awesome. They are 24 to 48-hour events. Usually free, sometimes with a $10 entry fee. People who've never met before come together on a Saturday morning, decide to make a team. 4 or 5 people into a team will build a solution. They come up with a minimum viable product, an actual solution to a problem within 24 to 48 hours, and they demonstrate it live to a judging panel. How many of you have used design agencies or digital agencies to build your solutions, your app solutions to problems? How much did you charge? How much were you charged for those particular projects? Stop using them. I used to run a company that was a design agency. I know how much I charged. It was phenomenally expensive and usually not actually worthwhile. So, those hackathons can produce between 10 and 15 solutions to a single problem. You get to triage those solutions. You choose the best of them, and then you incubate them. Now, what you are doing is that you are producing, in a hackathon, 9 failures and 1 success. And you need to create 9 failures. That's what you need to do. To innovate properly, you need to be embracing failure. Failure is how you learn. Criticism on things like that or on Twitter is how you learn. Understanding that you didn't get something right is important. Okay, so rapid prototyping for you guys. What do I think you should be doing? We had the same question in the group a few minutes ago. So this is our process. Our process is we define a problem first. We make it very clear. We work out what problem is that's worth solving. Now, there are lots of problems out there. Not all of them are worth solving.
Not all of them are going to be able to be solved quickly. So which problems are worth solving? Do the stakeholder engagement, then you do the innovation event, a rapid prototyping event. You incubate the winning projects, you launch them, it all happens within 90 days. Cost of failure is reduced. A lot of people talk about the cost of innovation or small-scale innovation as being low-cost innovation. It's not low-cost innovation. Innovation costs the same no matter how much you do it. What you need to do is reduce the cost of failure. So what you do is you compress the time it takes from problem resolution to failure, very, very, very compressed. So if we go back to this thing, this hockey stick thing, well, it's not a hockey stick, it's a nice curve. I reckon what's happening is that this is compressing. It's becoming a bit like a hockey stick. So what's happening in terms of the companies that are doing well are just reducing that time for incubation. Okay, so that's our process. What we do, we're not the only ones doing this. Lots of people are doing this. In terms of the things that I think you guys should be doing, I think you should be focusing on energy, on construction, on mining, but on the bits of mining that make sense to do, okay, that are economically viable for you to do. Construction, transport, distribution. I think you should be doing this. This is already being done in terms of energy in the US. They've cottoned on to this system. Americans are doing this already. So California has its Imagine H2O org, rapid prototyping events and hackathons for imagining water-saving projects. They are doing this utilising talent from the community. They connect up young people with developers, coders, with people who are involved in the energy industry, with people who are involved in water, and they come up together with projects at minimum viable project level within 48 hours. Greentown Labs, Massachusetts is doing the same thing for sustainable energy startups. Cyro, just last 2 or 3 weeks ago in Newcastle, did Hack the Sun.
Who'd have thought? Newcastle, eh?
Hey! The world's first solar hackathon was held in Newcastle. Should have been here. What the hell?
It's raining in Newcastle.
There's lots and lots of hackathons that are around. If you've never been to one, I'm quite more than happy to hang around afterwards and show you how to run a hackathon, because that's also a process. We ran the Qantas hackathon in 2015. We're running it again in 2016. We're currently working with Johnson & Johnson on their Hatchathon, because they had to call it something different. But it's a health hackathon. So Qantas last year, we had 11 projects that presented. So it was a Saturday-Sunday event. It was 24 hours. I did not sleep for 40 hours. Yes. I'm also going to do that tonight, because I'm taking a red-eye flight back tonight, back to Sydney, and I'm presenting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So, I didn't sleep for 40 hours for the Qantas hackathon. So we had 45, 50 participants at the event. 11 projects presented. Of those 11 projects, 8 of them were considered by Qantas to be viable. It cost them, for that Qantas hackathon, and I'm really giving my commercial model away now, about 80 grand the whole lot for the event. Now that was everything. That was cost of the venue, cost of the catering, because you did have to feed people, insurance, security, all that kind of stuff. So it did cost about 80 grand, but they generated much more than $250,000 worth of value in 48 hours. Including, they had, so there's the theatre of the event, all right? It's a 2-day event, right? So you have your judging panel, they come up with your prize-winning events. What we actually do is we take all 11 of those projects back into the enterprise environment and see whether those enterprise units think any of the projects could be incubated to a point that will benefit that particular company. So there's kind of a winner on the day, and then there can be winners after the event, if you like. So what we did with Qantas, the company that came second built games for children on flights. That was launched last November as the Joey Club project. And it's an Australian company, a little Tasmanian company that came up that actually built 4 games in 24 hours, showed it off to Qantas. Qantas was right at that moment about to enter into negotiation with an American design company to do exactly this. And they were able to find a local Australian company that was doing great things and could do it cheaply, and much more cheaply and much more effectively for this market. It's a great way of revealing the talent that's around.
That was one of them. They also did a frictionless payments things, a whole lot of other stuff. The J&J Hackathon is focused on people with serious illnesses and schizophrenia, which is probably appropriate for me. So rapid prototyping events. I think you should be doing water management, renewable energy, agricultural innovation. I reckon you should be doing construction, and I reckon you should be doing all of those things either locally or nationally. Why do you think that you have to do these things just here? You could be doing this kind of innovation for Kalgoorlie as an enterprise nationally. Get people coming from all over the country. And they do. They turn up. These people turn up to hackathons at their own expense. The guy who is now currently working at Qantas for their major UX experience, that's user experience for those people who don't know what UX stands for, it's really dumb. But the guy who's now in that role was somebody who paid for his own airfares to get from Perth to Sydney to participate in the Qantas hackathon, and he now has that job. So that was their recruitment process, basically, for that kind of role, which meant, effectively, they saved themselves 25k in terms of recruitment placements through a recruitment agency. Any of you working in HR? Sorry. Local incubators tend to be used for skills retraining for mining workers. So I'm not sure whether you know about this one. This is actually Muru D. It's the Telstra Accelerator for startups. Every year, Telstra brings in 10 companies. And they sort of put 40 to 60 grand into those companies and accelerate them. And those companies have between them actually raised about something like $4 or $5 million worth of value. So this is a consistent process that even large enterprises are doing because they know this Y Combinator model. Spread your investment broadly. One of the flowers will bloom. You'll make a fortune. That's what the process is. So here is what I think is your roadmap. You have to define problems worth solving first. And that doesn't happen through government. That happens through participatory design, as Scott would say. You then triage those problems. And by triaging, you work out which ones are the most important first, and which ones can we invest in effectively, and you prioritise them. You then gather the data. Now, gathering data means you need to have data sources. So it may be customer data, it may be data about the mines, it may be data about that you derive from sensors on agricultural properties. It could be data that you generate from the amount of the yield that you're generating for any particular product that you're creating. So you use that data and you make it available to the developers so that they can take that data, visualize it somehow, or use it somehow to create another solution. It's low-scale innovation. Low or low-level innovation, but high return. You engage the employees. Now I've said things, I've promised something. So engage the employees in the process. You need to make sure that if you are an enterprise, that you are using your own staff as part of these events. Obviously, they can't be competitors, because if they compete, then basically, and they win, doesn't look good. So, but you get either mentors or participants in the thing without getting the rewards. You engage skills assessors, so they are the judges who are part of those events. You run your events, you assess those products after the event, you choose an investment structure. Now you can either buy out that product. Oh, 5 minutes, good. You can either buy out that product as a commission, or you can invest in the company. You basically invest in the startup. You take a percentage of equity in that company, and effectively they have enough money to get off the ground, and then you share in the profits if they do very well. Or you can actually decide to say, no, I'll give you a bursary, and off you go, you see what you can do, and they build a company, and then you become their first client. So there's lots of different ways of investing also in these companies. You incubate the best products in the businesses, and you launch those businesses to a global market. You do not think of only working for Kalgoorlie-Boulder. You think of working for Asia. You think of working for Africa. You think of working for Brazil, because this is where you will make your money. You will not make money in Australia. Well, you might make some money in Australia, but you are likely to make much more money from the projects that you incubate over a very short period of time, internationally. So you make sure that your vision is global. So, what's the impact of all of this kind of process? Well, you're engaging everyone in the problem-solving process. It's not just government initiated, it's not just big company initiated projects. You know, what Bernard Salt was saying this morning when he actually produced the America versus Australia top 10 list is really important. There's been a lot of top-down innovation rather than bottom-up grassroots innovation. Grassroots is where it's at. You grow skills in your workers if you actually start to get them to participate in these events, because trust me, most of the workers that I've dealt with, most of the people that come to hackathon events actually learn to code off the back of the events that they attend. And learning to code is really easy. It's a linguistic skill. It's not hard. Trust me, I taught myself. It spreads the risk and it improves productivity. This is what's so extraordinary, is that even if you are in an organisation that is doing really, really well, if you can improve that process, you will find extraordinary incremental improvements in productivity, even if it's a disruptive innovation. So, what did I say I was going to do? I said I was going to define the challenges for Kalgoorlie-Boulder. I said I was going to illustrate how disruptive innovation can create opportunities for rural communities. And I said I would chart a path. I think I've done that. Thank you. I'm also a geek, and it would be remiss of me on International Star Wars Day not to say, may the Lord be with you.
Okay, any questions? Can't believe Telstra still hasn't changed with you there.